Corporate Governance Platform, a program from the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, is now at your doorstep.
By the way, what is corporate governance and what are its key pillars?
Will there be any conflict of interest if a person combines the roles of a chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
What can Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform crew every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your talent station, via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate Governance Platform, your strategy for the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities. Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on Corporate Governance Platform, proudly brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN. I am Tunde Odeyemi, and in today's episode we are going to look at the roles of regulators in entrenching good corporate governance. And I have with me right here in the studio a distinguished fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators, Mrs. OLADIMEJI OKEWALE. Mrs. OLADIMEJI OKEWALE is a lawyer and a corporate governance professional. She holds a BA degree in modern European languages from the then University of Ife, an LLB degree in law from Ogun State University, and was called to the Nigerian bar in 1991. Her experience in senior management positions spans well over 18 years, during which she acquired administrative, managerial, and project management skills with requisite experience. She is a member of the Institute of Directors, fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, and a certified corporate governance auditor and evaluator. She serves on the building committee of ICSAN, as well as the tourism and hospitality committee of the Institute of Directors. She is also a registered individual with the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria. Having spent over 12 years as the group company secretary legal advisor at Nucleus Group, with additional oversight responsibilities over real estate development, hospitality and corporate services arm of the group, Mrs. OKEWALE decided to leverage on the attendant realities of the COVID-19 pandemic to devote more time to her passion. She is the managing partner of QCC Legal, a legal and business advisory services firm. Mrs. OKEWALE, it's nice to have you on Corporate Governance Platform.
It's nice to be here. Thank you so much.
And thank you for finding time to join us on today's episode.
Thank you for having me too. Good evening.
Okay. We want to look at the roles of the regulators in entrenching good corporate governance. And I'd like to start this conversation by asking, who are the regulators in the context of corporate governance?
Thank you. Regulators in the context of corporate governance are the statutory regulatory bodies that have been established to set standards. They set the rules, the regulations, the procedures in the specific sectors of the industry where they are functioning. And then you have those who have overall supervision over other sectors. You have the Security Exchange Commission with the Code on Public Companies. You have CAC.
Okay, those are the ones that have overall supervision.
Overall supervision. You have the sector. They call them sectoral regulators. And then you have the major ones like SEC, like FRC, and with the NCE.
Okay. Why then is the issue of monitoring or monitoring of compliance relevant in relation to corporate governance code?
Okay. First of all, when you talk about monitoring, you are talking about overseeing. Compliance is adherence to rules. Okay. If the rules are there and there is nobody to monitor it, then how are we sure it's working? There must be continuous assessment of the system for us to be sure, for the government to be sure that yes, the system is working well. The corporate the Code of Corporate Governance of 2018, which just came out in 2019, is still being implemented. So there is need for continuous assessment.
Okay. What roles do regulators like Financial Reporting Council, FRC, Securities and Exchange Commission, and Corporate Affairs Commission have to play in ensuring compliance with the code?
First of all, let me first quickly bring it out that the latest one is the Company and Allied Matters Act of 2020.
Okay.
The Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance of 2018 came into being when it was signed in January 2019.
Okay.
Yes. And so these ones, the Nigerian Corporate Code, Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance cannot function fully without the integration of the other regulators.
Okay.
And Section D of the introductory part of the Corporate Governance Code actually says it, that the FRC, which is the Financial Reporting Council, will continue to monitor through these regulators. And it's the regulators who go out in their various sectors, the various industries they have authority over, and they actually play those roles to make sure that there are set rules, regulations, there's compliance. Because at the end of the day, what are we talking about? We're talking about corporate accountability. We're talking about business profitability. So the health, they are the ones who will monitor the health of the system. They are the ones that will set the standards. They will make sure that the compliance, and where there's deviation from the norm, they are the ones that will bring the sanctions. And there's a continuous assessment by monitoring to find out where the weakness in the system is, what needs to be done, whether we need to review, readjust, amend. It's a constant process.
Okay, should we then assume that there is multiplicity of monitoring when we have the Financial Reporting Council, Securities and Exchange Commission, Corporate Affairs Commission monitoring? Is there multiplicity of monitoring?
When you say multiplicity, there's an impliedness that it is too much. No, it's not like that.
Okay.
You have sector regulators like PENCOM, who are over the licensed pension fund operators. You have the one for the insurance industry, which is NICOM. You have the Corporate Governance Code for the public companies.
Okay.
You have also for public companies that are Securities Exchange. You also have for the telecommunications industry, which is NCC. Now, these sector regulators are for specific. NCC is for the telecommunications industry. Insurance is for the insurance industry. PENCOM is for the licensed pension fund operators. Now, these ones are for their sectors.
Okay.
So they're specialized, specific. The code, we've been saying it, is voluntary. It's not mandatory.
Yeah.
And so because it's voluntary and it's not mandatory, you see that there are situations where there are no sanctions. In fact, there are no sanctions in the NCCG. What it says is it wants us to inculcate best practices in companies. So where do the sanctions come from? They come from the sectors, the sector codes.
Okay.
I think I'm flowing on that.
You are really.
So that's it. Now, Securities and Exchange, the code for public companies. Public companies is wide.
Sure.
Listed on the stock exchange, NCE and all that. CAC talks about all the companies that are registered in Nigeria, whether you're public, whether you're private, limited liability, whether you're a partnership, whether you're for non-profit, whether you're trustee. It's a wide concept, just like public companies.
Okay.
Which one else have I missed out? You have that. So with those ones, public companies, CAC, registered companies, and then the national code, you call them the major regulators.
Okay.
But you now go to the sectors. There's no multiplicity. Because if, for example, I'm in the insurance industry, I'm going to register my company. If I need to do alterations of shares, I'm going to go to CAC.
Okay.
If I am listed on the stock exchange, then I have to follow the rules of the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
Sure.
So those ones, you can actually be a company and actually have to follow like 2 or 3 of these codes.
Okay, you actually dwell on the sectoral regulators, and I want to take it off from there. given that the sectoral regulators also do a bit of monitoring on their own specialized codes, now what roles do these sectoral regulators, NICOM, PENCOM, and the likes, have to play in ensuring compliance with the NCCG code?
Okay, now for the sector regulators, let's call them the primary source.
Okay.
That's how I'd want, that's where it starts. They have
the sector regulators, the primary source, right?
Primary source in the sense that they are the ones on the ground.
Okay.
They are the ones that deal with these people, corporate
entities. Okay.
Deals with the corporate entities. So, for example, what is obtainable in the insurance industry might not be obtainable in the telecoms industry.
Okay.
Those ones are like that. But whether it is telecoms industry or the insurance industry, they are all under the corporate code of the Code of Corporate Governance, which is what are the things, key driver of corporate accountability, the various key values, trust, accountability, disclosure, all those things. We're trying to build an environment where there is ease of business, an environment where on the longer term, businesses are growing. There's long-term growth. That's the big. It's a wide concept. Let me be honest, and it's something that we need to expand on. But I have a feeling that I don't have enough time to expand on all this.
Okay, let me take you to another area.
Okay.
Do you agree with the assumption that the regulators have enhanced responsibilities as a result of the rampaging COVID-19 pandemic?
Oh, definitely. The world as it is, even now, it's not the same as what it was before the pandemic. A lot of us, even in our personal lives, our business lives, would have to change. Let's give an example. For example, the NCE, Corporate Affairs, and FRC, they had to sit down and rethink during the pandemic. Take an example of annual general meetings. Before, you had to be in physical attendance. But with this pandemic, the after results are there's a lot more dependence on information technology. There had to be amendments, introduction of virtual meetings. That's going digital. So these regulators have to constantly be reviewing their products, the deliveries, the deliverables. How is it matching what is on ground? How can they assist to move it forward? How can they make it friendly for the operators, for the people who are going to be involved in it? So nowadays you have virtual meetings. You are doing Zoom quite a lot now.
Sure.
I'm sure. So those are part and parcel of the things the sector regulators, they have to continuously start thinking about how to improve on the deliverables to the people, to the environment. The companies themselves that they're supervising, they have to keep checking it. How do we make it better? How do we improve? There's safe distancing now. A lot of people don't move around as they used to. During the time of lockdown, they weren't even moving at all.
Sure.
So, yes, they has to be enhanced, and I believe that they have tried to a certain extent. There could be more, and I believe there will be more.
Okay, let me go back a little bit to the sectoral codes and the national code. Will you say the sectoral codes still have much relevance in the light of the emergence of the national code?
Yes, for the time being, yes, very, very yes. The national code is talking about, though I don't want to go into that because you will not ask me that. They apply and explain. But what I was going to say was the national code is basically fostering the ability to grow the company, to develop best practices according to international standards. It is not forcing you, it's voluntary, it's not mandatory. And because it is voluntary and it's not mandatory, the question now arises that how do you make sure that where there are infringes, where there are deviations, who will enforce it? It's the sector regulators.
Okay. So the sector regulators are still very much relevant in the light of the national code.
Very. And if I may just chip in, if we look at, I've said it earlier, it's inside the introduction that the Financial Reporting Council will continue the monitoring of compliance through these sector regulators. So it's very evident that they're still very much around, very much useful, and they're enhancing the corporate best practices of corporate governance.
Okay, the sectoral codes is still very much relevant, and the sectoral regulators are still very much needed to do the real job.
Definitely.
On that note, we'll go on a very short break. When we come back, we continue with the conversation with Mrs. OLADIMEJI OKEWALE. Please don't go away.
Corporate Governance Platform, a program from the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, is now at your doorstep.
By the way, what is corporate governance and what are its key pillars?
Will there be any conflict of interest if a person combines the roles of a chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
What can Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform coup every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your talent station via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate Governance Platform, your strategy for the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities. Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
You are welcome back. It's the Corporate Governance Platform, proudly brought to you by ICSAN, Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. And we are discussing the role of regulators in entrenching good corporate governance. And I still have with me Mrs. OKEWALE leading in the conversation. Yeah, before we went on break, you actually mentioned apply and explain mechanism. I'd like to take you up on that. But what can you say about the adequacy of that mechanism of the national code?
Okay. First of all, I want my personal opinion.
Okay.
Is that nothing starts brilliantly. Nothing is perfect. There has to be constant growth, constant evaluation of it. And I'm sure the Financial Reporting Council too, they're looking at what is needful to be done. Let us not forget that there was an original code in 2016 which had to be put aside on sides of illegality or the legality of it, plus the fact that the government is looking at the ease of doing business.
Okay.
So when we come back to the present one of 2018, what has happened is the Nigerian Corporate Governance Code now is saying we have 28 principles and 6 parts. In these 28 principles, these are what we assume we want to integrate as best practices. This is what we believe that in the long run will bring about a renewed vigor in the economy, business growth. So it's what they are now saying is apply and then explain. So you take the principles. There's scalability, we call it scalability and flexibility. Now what that means is that the Corporate Governance Code is wide, is bendable, is flexible. It applies to companies across all these sector codes I have discussed. Insurance, whatever you are, it applies to you. Now, in applying to you, it's also saying no matter how big you are in size, no matter how long you've been, the growth of the company, whether you're a big company, small company, whether you're a medium-sized company, it is applicable. We're flexible. It is saying that where you're coming from, we're also looking at the background of your business. So it's scalable and it's also flexible. And because of that, it cannot afford to be rigid. So what it now says is, okay, when you are filling in, because there's actually a report, a compliance report that you download from the website of Federal Financial Reporting Council at the end, which also a copy should be on the website of the company. Now what it says is, you will now apply. We have applied this principle, and you will explain how within the context of your own background, the size of your company and everything, how you have been able to bring out the intended outcome of this principle, how you have fared. And what it means is that company B might not have the same result as company D, even though they've applied the same principle. For me, I think it's good. It's good in the end because it gives the regulators the opportunity at the end of the day to look at it and say, we need to look at this area.
I think I got you very clearly there. It's a way of giving everybody opportunity of even deploying corporate governance
and growing
principles.
At the same time.
Okay. Now let me ask this question. Since the code is voluntary, what purpose do you think monitoring of compliance serves? It's not mandatory.
Yes, it's not mandatory. Okay, let me use an everyday.
Okay.
Every day. For example, nobody says you have to go to the doctors and do body checks. But we know that once you're over 40, it is okay. It's better for you to do body checks.
Okay.
So there has to be constant monitoring. There must be compliance, but you have to monitor the compliance. It's a continuous assessment to be able to determine the health of the companies. It's a continuous because it's shareholder value. At the end of the day, if you do not assess these people, these companies, these corporate entities, then you're playing with the shareholders' funds. So it's important that for us to grow, for these corporate governance, apart from the business, the economy of the country to grow, we need to move forward. We need to constantly assess to know where we are, to know if there are deviations. Those who have been sanctioned, what are the reasons why they've been sanctioned? Could it have been better? Could we alter? Could we modify? Assessment is important, which is exactly the monitoring of the compliance.
Okay, so whether voluntary or mandatory compliance, monitoring compliance is essential.
Oh yes, it's very essential.
Now, what role do institutional investors play in ensuring compliance?
Okay, first of all, who are institutional investors?
Okay.
They are entities with large shareholding, large investments. Now, because they have, for example, let me give an example, hedge funds, sovereign wealth, banks, insurance companies, pension fund operators, all these people have a lot of work. Now, they are carrying clients. They're carrying the funds of their clients. So it's not one person. An institutional investor could actually have like 20 corporate entities that is carrying the investment. They are more critical because they have to be sure where they're putting their money, the money of their clients. So in being critical, it means that they're checking certain things, and we shouldn't forget that the fact that they're investing in company A doesn't mean they're not investing in company C. So they're more critical, they're more sure of the investment, they are critical of what the companies they want to invest in have. Corporate governance must be followed. They want to see your records, the annual returns. They go to your website. They ask questions, and of course, the advantage is when it comes to what's the English word? When it comes to turning around the situation, they are forced to be reckoned with, and because they are forced to be reckoned with, the companies know that they have to apply adherence to the rules.
So they have a fantastic role to play.
Oh yes,
when it comes to compliance.
They're carrying some weight.
Okay, is there any role for other stakeholders in order to ensure that the provisions of the code are complied with?
Yes. Who are the other stakeholders?
Okay.
The other stakeholders are they are the employees, they are the management, the board, they are the customers, they are the suppliers, the contractors. They are also, in fact, they are also the financiers, the people who lend, which is why I said the banks. Now, including the community in which the company or the corporate entity is based, as well as the people, the public. So what roles are they playing? The stakeholder engagement. The corporate governance code says that under this report report on compliance that I mentioned earlier, you have to be able to declare under disclosure, have you entertained stakeholder engagement? How many times, or how did it happen? So whichever way you see it, the stakeholders, there's no minority shareholder, and therefore there's no minority stakeholder.
That is technical. So all the stakeholders are also involved.
Oh yes.
Okay. I want to answer this question in less than 60 seconds.
Wow.
Using international standards as the benchmark, how will you rate the performance of Nigerian regulators?
I'm a patriot. We're slow, but we're getting there.
Okay.
There must be room for improvement. We need to look at the packages, the deliverables. There's still a long way to go. But I want to say we're on our way. The Code of Corporate Governance has shown that if we follow it to the letter, if we apply, if we explain, things will get better. There's growth. You said 60 seconds, so I'm watching it as well.
Okay, I think your 60 seconds should be over by now.
Oh wow!
Now you are a fellow with the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators, ICSAN, right?
Yes.
What's the relationship between ICSAN and regulators like Financial Reporting Council, Corporate Affairs Commission, Security and Exchange Commission?
ICSAN has a very cordial relationship, mutual trust. As you know, we promote corporate governance across board. We're interested in economic recovery. We're interested in economic growth. So we engage with them. when there are new laws to be reviewed, if whatever it is, they call us. It may please you to know also that not only that this code, as it came out, we were part of the steering committee.
Okay.
We're sitting on the Council of Corporate Affairs Commission. Everywhere our efforts are, if we see there's an area that we need to move into, we do. We issue communiques, we do trainings, we bring these what do you call it, regulatory bodies along. It's very, very important. So I would say yes, we see them as our partners in progress, and they see us too as partners in progress. When you have issues, ICSAN is always ready to move into it, ready to issue publications on it.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Now, what advice do you have for the regulators on how they can improve their oversight functions on the operators?
I think compliance is still important.
Okay.
Adherence to rules are important. They have to keep improving. They have to keep assessing. They have to keep making sure that the deliverables are of the highest, what should we call it, the highest value possible. I see you are looking.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Dimeji OKEWALE. So thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for sharing your thoughts on the role of regulators in entrenching good corporate governance. This is where we wrap it up, and we invite you to join us again next week. Same station, same time on Corporate Governance platform. Please keep sharing the gospel of corporate governance. I remain Tunde Odeyemi. Bye for now.
Corporate Governance Platform, a program from the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, is now at your doorstep.
By the way, what is corporate governance and what are its key pillars?
Will there be any conflict of interest if a person combines the roles of a chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
What can Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday